Hotep Senuena Senut. Hotep Senuena Senut. E.T. and Ishakan Kemet. Looks like we have Smash Rockwell, but I don't see any image. Let us see if it's really him. Hotep, you?
Peace
Hey,
to
what's
the
up, man?
Yeah, I'm just on a different phone. How you doing?
I'm chilling. Glad you came in.
Yeah, I just got through doing some gaming and I looked at YouTube and just wanted to see what was going on.
All right. Well, it's funny because yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was telling the brothers and sisters that I'm really looking for people who are interested in the Medu nature, and I was telling them about the classes, and I was telling them that I would like to show some artifacts and for us to go through it. And this is what I've decided to do today. Nevertheless.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
now I have a fair bit of pictures, and this first set of pictures is actually from the Louvre Museum. But you might know that whenever I'm live streaming, everybody's free to address any topic whatsoever. So if there's anything you would like to talk about, then feel free, brother.
It's all good. I'm just support here and support.
All right. For those who don't know, this is our brother Smash Rockwell. Now, some of you might say, okay, we don't see his face there because that's a requirement, but he did show his face and we know who he is. You know what I'm saying? He's not anonymous or unidentified. His YouTube account is Smash Rockwell. Okay.
So I'm sitting in my dirty garage. That's the only reason why.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. No problem. And well, for those who heard me talking about this discussion about the root chem, the gardener reference I6 glyph, that's a brother who did the work. That's a brother who went through the TLA and showed many different attestation. And once again, the video, if I'm not mistaken, that really sparked the whole discussion is called Ancient Egyptians Calling Themselves Black. And that was like 2 months ago. So I don't have the actual reference. Is my cursor showing? Brother Smash, can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I can see it moving.
Oh, that's good. Thanks. So, or Dua. Um, I have the references for some of the artifacts. For others, I don't. So when I have the reference, I'll make sure to show them to you. But this is the Louvre Museum, Paris, France. So, um, what we have here is a typical offering formula. Some people call it Dinesu Hotep or Hotep Dinesu. Now, this glyph here is funny to me because it's actually a seat, but for strange reason, it always reminds me of a piano because of its shape. So, those who know the name Osiris know the spelling. It's typically the throne and the eye, but then instead of the throne, we have that seat. So, it's still the same name, but with a different spelling. Then we have the typical title or appellation, foremost of the Westerners. Then we have D or Redi F, he gave or may he give or he has given. Translation depends on the context. Then we have the word peret. This is the word that we have in the in peret em heru. Some people pronounce it pert em heru, which is a proper name for what for the misnomer book of the dead. You see, so underneath it looks like the ak or ach, but I'm not sure. Then we can see the face, that's hair. This looks like a single stroke to me. And if I'm not mistaken, this looks like heru, which by itself means voice. I'm not sure what it means here. So this is actually the Quelchic, and there it serves as a phonetic complement. Brothers and sisters, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any statement you make, whether you agree or disagree, then feel free. I have already shared the invite link, and it's in the top right corner of the chat. I just want to go through some artifact. It's going to be more interesting when I will show you the references because you will see the kind of dates that we are dealing with. Because when it comes to the Abrahamic belief system that most of our people are trapped into, if we ask them for documents, it's going to be a difficult task. So here, I don't know what it stands for because, for example, there doesn't look like it, but it's the report of water. A lot of time, the report of water will not appear with a pointy or pointed sides, or basically like the waves. And like I said during the classes, I'm not an expert when it comes to monument or sculpture or monument preservation, but I suspect that because it is made of stone, most of the time it's limestone. Sometimes if the scribe will try to do certain designs or motif, it would have damaged the artifact. It's just way easier to draw a straight line. So that's the reason why sometimes the ripple of water appears as a straight line. Not all the time, but it's common. And I know for sure it's the ripple of water because this is the two arms raised, the bilateral ka. So here it says NKN. Those who take the classes know how to translate NKN. So here, I don't know if that's the ripple of water. Doesn't look as straight as here. Maybe it is the foot of a bovine or bovidae that we have for the word uhem. Uhem that can be translated as renewed or renewal. So I don't know for sure what is there. Now underneath we have is. When you have a determinative, it's easy to tell, but is also uh, the word for tomb. Now underneath that symbol, which is the second report of water for that NKN, this is a glyph for sesh. And I'm sure some of you brothers and sisters know what sesh means. It's a very common word. It appears quite regularly. Then we have the hare, just similar to a rabbit. Um, yeah, so I will not go through every single symbols from the artifacts that I show, but I think we had uncle. No, yeah, here we have uncle. We have uncle, and here we have tep. This is actually the face seen from the side, and we even have the phonetic complement, and then we have the mark of the pro, so it might be pronounced tepu here. Then we have het f, and so on. Mm, have the reference there. Oh, okay, I see. I get it. So this here, and this is the back. This is what I show in a video called Introduction to Kemet. Today is called Kemet and Ma'at on YouTube, and I show the actor Jismon Hunsu, and This person's name is Hunsu. So I'm not claiming there's a correlation. It just sounds similar. So that's the actual artifact. So this is around 1450 BCE. This is 3,000 years old. Just the artifact, you know. And needless to say, in museums, you do have originals. You normally don't have to wonder. If an artifact is not an original, then they are supposed to specify it. They are supposed to state it. They will say it's a replica. Okay. We don't usually see people naked, but here's the case. And we have some sort of baboon or monkey. Another person that's completely naked. Now, around his shoulders, I don't know if it's some sort of cloth or if it's an animal. Now, that's quite unusual. Here we have some Medu nTr with the color. So, this glyph here, many people pronounce that word, but I know from experience that most of the people who talk about Kemet don't know the language, but that's a word that we pronounce a lot. That glyph by itself is the word that we pronounce a lot, and underneath we have what we call phonetic complements. Now, right here, this combination here, those three glyphs, now here is read from right to left, by the way. Sometimes it can be read from left to right. Sometimes it can be read from right to left. I forgot what I said first. So it can be read from right to left, left to right, top to bottom, and right to left, top to bottom, and left to right. Now we do have Cody Breu. Wrote, I'm a new brother. I'm fascinated by your ancient and by our ancient ancestors. Why so many don't realize that the exodus occurred during the 18th dynasty under Amenhotep II in his 10th year during the spring of 1443 B. So, brother, you believe that the exodus occurred? Are you serious, brother? There's no record of an exodus ever happening. And what you're saying is interesting because sometimes I hear or I read people stating that um, the Joseph of the Bible was actually such and such Pharaoh. You know, people are looking for attestation of these biblical characters so bad that they will do anachronism. What makes you think that the Exodus actually occurred? Is it because somebody said so? Or is it because there's some record substantiating it? The Exodus, mainly a large population of non indigenous people leaving the territory. There were some plagues, the water parted into, that population bounced, and then Pharaoh and his army drowned in the water. So when you say exodus, to what extent does it match with the narrative? I asked, are you serious? I hope you don't take it the wrong way, but we have to be clear. We have to be clear. What we have been doing as a people is trying to put ourselves in the Abrahamic mix. And if there are records for that, if there is data that allows us to say that. And let's have a look at it. If there's no data, then why do we say that? Now, Cody Bro wrote the 18th dynasty took revenge on the Israelites for being aligned with the Hyksos in the Delta, reclaiming their country, casualties of war. Do we have any records of Israelites in Kemet, brother? Says who? What you're saying now? Who said that? Or what record says that? Which scholar say that? Or which teacher says that? Or which record does it come from? So this glyph here, along with that biliteral, this is uniliteral. This is a report of water. It's the same here, just different size. But those three here spell one word, very significant, very important word. And here for the record, we have two uniliterals, the hour and the arm. And you can notice that the two are over the other one, or superimposed or overimposed. And in the temple of Abydos, where you have some glyphs that appear to have similar shape as spacecraft or spaceships, they're just glyphs that are superimposed because they could put some sort of plaster on the wall and they added a different name, and the plaster kind of fed off. So that's why we have two different glyphs. But there's actually a very good article that I have uh, actually shared and mentioned many times, and he actually comes from one guy that I label pseudo number two. So sometimes people can do some good work, but sometimes I don't know, it might be the chemtrails, or it might be some special flies or some special insect uh that can bite people, and then they get crazy for a little while until they receive treatment and they are back to sanity. Or it might be the food, or it might be a cult, might be a sect. But sometimes people say weird things, you know. And sometimes they do that for money because we gotta eat, we gotta survive. I don't know the reason why, but the article, it's a nice one. It deals with the so-called spacecraft or spaceships. See, so now we have Brother Reggie who wrote, "What references? Please insert, or please stop wasting our time. Even if they were Heka Hasut living, it does not match with the Bible." And he wrote, "There is no record of Israelites, though in the Meron Petasteli there is a reference to a place name." Now, the Meron Petah Stella, I wonder if you say Stella in English, but you do say Stele as well. I think you say both, but anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. That's what is known as the Israel Stella. And many people claim that on the Israel Stella, so called Israel Stella, Merpeta Stella, the word Israel is spelled. Phonetically, it's Isidiar. Unfortunately, we have a determinative of a man and a woman plus the mark of the plural, the three strokes, which shows that it's talking about people. So I personally wouldn't say that it's a place name, but who knows? So here we have tools of the scribes. And the glyph that stands for scribe that we have seen earlier, we have two round, and this will be what we see here, where the coloring, now Reggie wrote stele. All right. For many years I've been saying Stella. I've been saying Stella for a good decade. Um, so inside of these holes, you will have the coloring, most likely some powder mixed with some liquid, and it will be, I don't want to say paint, but I like to say coloring. I don't know which description goes for which palette, but if you have a quick look, it might be a bit difficult to see. But there it says palette of the painter Imen Mess. Those who take the classes should know what MESS stands for. The glyph is a three-fox skin, the biliteral. It's a nice name, actually. It's like Jehuti Mess or Yames. So the date is around 1200 BC. So that's 3000 years old. Here we have the palette of the scribe Nebu Au between 1500 and 1000 BC. So that's at least 3000 years old. This one is the palette. Well, okay, this one, I presume, because this one here, I don't see any description for it. But next we have the palette of a scribe. There's something else, I don't know how to translate it. It's from the New Kingdom, same time period between 1500 and 1000 BC. This, and then the next one is the palette in the name of Seken Rata. Now, I don't know if you are able to read it. Actually, let me see how it looks on the stream. Because my screen, when I'm live streaming, uh, the studio, for lack of a better word, is a very small screen. So I want to see how big it is. Yeah, it's difficult to read now if I do the live screen. Yeah, but if somebody has some very high resolution screen, you might notice that it says Re, R-E, with an accent. But French people like to write it Re, R-E, but it is really Ra. And then it's described in the name of the king Tutankhamun, or King Tut, as you call it. So this is 18th dynasty, around 1300 BCE. So 3000 years old. No, only like that. Now this here is probably some hieratic. It looks like a known language. But it's either hieratic or demotic. So this is a tale of the Battle of Kadesh. It's actually the poem of Pentaur. Now, Ta might be the word for the land, Ur might be the word for great. But pen first, I want to be sure. Now, Ta pen, we know what it means for those who take the classes. So it says around 1200 BC, papyrus. It's a gift from someone called Gose. That's reference here. And we are told the Battle of Kadesh opposed a coalition reunited by the Hittites against the army of Ramesses II in the year 5 of the king. 1275 BC, largely broadcasted by Ramses II. Now, I've used the word broadcasted when I translated. There could be a more appropriate word, but cut me some slack. I'm really going on the fly. It's not scripted. So you can use spreaded or spread, largely spread by Ramses II, for the purpose of propaganda. This tale was still being copied after his death. Now, oh, uh, some people will use it, but it's okay. So this here is a student or pupil's tablet. Between 1900 and 1600 BC. It's made of wood. Now we're told the first sentence of a scholar book studied and copied by plenty of generations of scribes in learning, Kemet, meaning the amount or the total, if you will. So those, okay, I will dwell into that. And here we have a fragment of the sarcophagus text or text of sarcophagus. Now, this is around 2200 and 1700 BC. So this is at least 3700 years old. Now, we do have Codibreu who wrote the Egyptians wasn't going to record their misfortunes by a foreign god and defeat, but many records attest to the timeline that Moses IV was not the intended ruler. He did false propaganda at the Sphinx. Moses, born in 1523 BC, under Hatshepsut's father, Thutmose I, who was a general under Amenhotep I. Says who? Did you make that up? Where did you get that from? Which Egyptologist says that? Which record says that? Now, I can understand if you say that the Egyptians were not going to record their misfortune, but don't you think they would at least record that the king died and his army died? There is a papyrus. There is a record known as Anastasia 5, and it talks about two runaways that they looked for, that they searched, that they went after. If we have records of two runaways being wanted, it's safe to presume that should the pharaoh, the king, and his army die in the water, they would have recorded it, in assuming that they wouldn't want to say, okay, it's the L that it took from the Israelite God, a defeat or misfortune by a foreign God. Wouldn't they at least say, well, the king died today with his whole army? We can be more precise. Where do you get that from? I mean, you can make, cite, you can write stuff like that. It's fine. But where do you get that from? Who said that? Did you say that? Did you come up with that? So this text is written in Hieroglyphic, by the way. Okay. Now, the sarcophagus texts are a summary of formulas, magical religious, used in the Middle Kingdom to assure the survival of the deceased. And the Hieroglyphic is a simplified form of hieroglyphic. And the fact that they are written in vertically shows that it's from ancient time, ancient or Middle Kingdom. And this manuscript belongs to someone called Merer. And this one here is a judicial text between 1500 and 1200 BC. I think this is Demotic. They don't specify, but this is a gift from the library of La Sorbonne. You must have heard about Sorbonne, that university in Paris. The Sorbonne is one of the most prestigious university in France, to my knowledge. As usual, you have the reference at the bottom right corner, and it says that it's a inventory table of a temple of the fifth dynasty around 2400 BC. And this is 4,000 years old, 4,400 years old. Can you imagine? Abraham wasn't born. Moses wasn't born. Comes from Abu Sir, from a funerary temple of Nefer Ir Ra Kakai. Now you notice, like I said, we have Re, R-E, with that accent that we call accent circonflexe. And we can dissect the name. We have Nefer, we have Ir, we have Ka, and we have Ra. So we can dissect that name or word in four parts. This is a medical text from the 18th dynasty between 1500 and 1200 BC. This is a partial translation. Other remedy, other perfect remedy. I don't know how to translate that, but whatever that is one measure. Then honey, one measure. Then fat, then later on peret, fruit, cheni. How do you translate that in English? Peas. I don't know how to translate this oliban, but it's dry. And they say you can make a dang, what's the word again? Hold on, bear with me. It's funny how some words escape me sometimes. Bandage, but okay, I thought it would be a more appropriate word, but let's say make a bandage with it. 4 days in a row. And this translation is taken from someone called Bardine. That's his surname. I don't know what the first name is. Now this is in Hieroglyphic. It's also a legal text. Earlier I said judicial text, but I meant legal text around 1000 BC. And it's a list of witnesses regarding a dispute about the day of work of a servant. Did you hear that? About the day of work of a servant. Reference AF 1577b. On this hieratic text around 1000 BC. Mainly have two words for servant, hem and back. Most of the time, back is translated as, many times, back is translated as slave. Hem, some people might translate it as slave, but most of the time they will translate it as servant because, like I explained and I go in details in the classes, it will be unlikely that the same word for slave will be the same word that you have for the word priest, or even for the word that denotes the king. But there's a dispute about the wage, about the salary of a servant. But many people see ancient Egypt as a land of slavery and evil. And I made a video not long ago talking about what I saw on TikTok, a video with more than 1 million views, and it's entitled the biggest enemies of Islam. And number one is Pharaoh. So that would be the whole Egyptian civilization altogether. But let's say Pharaoh, who is not named, Pharaoh being a title, meaning king. So we don't even know who it is. Does somebody know the name of the Pharaoh of the Exodus? Many people presume that it's Ramesses II, but allows us to say that or validate that. Now, this text here is a correspondence, an administrative correspondence of Bak and Khunsu. We can break down that name in three parts. And I mentioned Bak earlier. So we have Bak and Khunsu. Khunsu being a given name. He's a chief of the cattle of the temple of Amen. It's during the reign of Ramesses IV, around 1100 BC. And the person who gave the gift was called Male, and that's a reference there. I like this one, but we don't see it too well. We have the guy with the position of, that's typically the position of prayer. Now, like I said many times, when you look at the arms, you look like it appears like one arm is further up front in the front, but really they are the same. They are at the same level. So that if the scribe draws the arms at the same level, and we see it from the side, but we only see one arm. That's the reason why one arm appears to be forward. And we have many people, many brothers and sisters, who like to do that position, like this, when really the arm should be at the same level. It's not the end of the world. That's just for the record. And I've shown two artifacts where we can see that position. But it doesn't come from painting on papyrus, it comes from statues, so it's obvious. This is an excerpt from the so-called Book of the Dead, around 1450 BC. In this excerpt of the Book of the Dead, in the name of the scribe Hor Neferet, he says Hor Neferet really in French, but we know that's Hor Neferet. The drawings and the signs, quickly written with ink with the help of some sort of a pencil, are still recognizable. The different birds, the seated man with the hand towards his mouth, the horned viper, the hare. The text is read in columns from right to left and from top to bottom. And we do have the reference at the top right corner. So because of, you see there's a window behind. Because of that, we cannot distinguish what we see too well. Here we have the individual with his arms up. Here we do have actually the we have Ra. And well, anyway, I could go through the glyphs, but we don't have a clear view here. We have a better view here. All right, that's very clear, but that's most likely late period. I'm gonna grab something to drink. Bear with me. You must have noticed, brothers and sisters, that since I asked Cody Burr for references, we didn't have any answer, did we? And we have to be very careful because a lot of time people say stuff you don't even know. We don't even know where they get that from. It's important to ask because in the so-called conscious community, people say, "Oh, that guy is a scholar. That guy is a historian. That guy is a professor. That guy is a doctor." Then the individual proceeds to say stuff. Some people are sharp, so they will give references, either references to primary original documents. Others will give references of authors or fellow scholars, you know, or books. But many people have a habit of just saying stuff for the sake of it. And other people who happens to be neophytes will just repeat what they've heard. And then that's how people just repeat stuff that they heard. They don't even know if it's valid or not. And then we have to take time to explain to our people that it is not substantiated, that is unconfirmed. But by the time we try to break that down, there are some people who say, well, just because the scholar says it doesn't make it true. How did the scholar come to that conclusion? You notice they will not ask that question to the scholars, though. They will ask you the question. And you know the language and they don't. But it's all good. So that's the owl here, a uniliteral. Another uniliteral, that's the mouth. We have a shen. I forgot the value of this glyph, but here we have ib, that's actually the heart. If you look at the judgment scene, where the feather of Ma'at is weighed against the heart of the Sesh Ani, that's what you see. The difference is that here, um, I don't know if that will be die or right. We should see the material in the description. But on the papyrus of Ani, the ib will have like a reddish type of color, or the heart, I mean, the heart. And that's Ra here. Okay. Here we have the Hare, then the ripple of water. Actually, all this says Hunefer, Unen sorry, Unen which is an epithet for Usir. Okay. So Nefer here is written with the two phonetic complements. So it says fragment of an inscription of the chancellor. Now that's the glyph that stands for chancellor. The chancellor, Uah, Uah Ibre. And I told you that I could not remember the phonetic value of that glyph, so it appears it will be Uah because we have Ib and we have Ra. Now they once again they wrote Re, but it's Ra. And then what does it say here? What does it say here? Unenefer. You remember what I told you. Like I suspected, this is kind of late period, but some people will say it's a bit before the late period. People will place the late period around 400 BC. Others might, say a bit earlier. But 25th dynasty, between 600 and 500 BC, it was found in a Serapeum in Saqqara. Now that's a material. I don't know how you translate that in English. And it says that the signs are some detailed images. We can recognize the owl, a cylinder seal, and its collar or necklace. Let's say necklace, a harry, a hawk, and a horned viper. And finally, at the bottom right, we have the reference. Hope you can still hear me. Hope you can still hear me. Well, the image quality is not great. It's better with the other computer. Um, I will try to use the other computer. I have to check though how it would look when I would go through the pictures. Um, I've used that one in a video that has a title to the effect of proof of the decipherment of the hieroglyphs. We can see the Shen. Some people call it Shen or Shen ring. By the way, here we can see that there was an Ankh. I mean, there is an Ankh, but that part is damaged, obviously. Here we have the different stars. I mean, different stars. We have a few stars. This is the vulture, not the one that stands for Mut. That's the Aleph. That's the lion, which was initially the sound Ru, the phonetic value Ru. But later on, when the Romans and I mean the Greeks and the Romans came, it was used for the sound L. Then we have the basket with the handle, that's a K or K. Then we have the bolt or the lock, which is a sound for S. Then the relief, the sound for E. The ripple of water, the sound for N. The hand, the sound for the D. The mouth, which is the R. And the same glyph as here is the bolt or the lock, the sound for S. So we have A, L, K, S, E, N, D, D, R, S. Alexander. Actually, Alexinderes. Right? Now let's look at the reference because some of you might say, well, says who? Where do you get that from? What's the reference? Well, the reference is the Louvre Museum. What does it say here? The name of the King Alexander in hieroglyphs. That's the reference here, E30890. What's the date? Around 330 BC, made of basalt. Now, why did I entitle this proof of the decipherment of the hieroglyphs? If we make a calculation, this is around 300 BC. Rosetta Stone was found, I think it was 1799. So let's say 1800. If we add the 300 of the 300 BC, we have, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to be messing with my arithmetic, but that's 2000 years, isn't it? So 2000 years before the Rosetta Stone was found, here we have the name Alexander written in hieroglyphics. What a coincidence, if it was not deciphered, that the Greeks wrote the name Alexander with the uniliterals. Now, once again, this one initially was a biliteral ru, but the Greeks and Romans used it for the sound L. So they use those symbols that we call uniliterals. Some people might call them uniconsonants, and they wrote the name Alexander. Someone needs to explain that to me. Someone needs to explain that to us. Remember, the Greeks were in Kemet when the Medu nTr was still used. And the Rosetta Stone has the same text in Medu nTr and in Greek. And we still have some people who will tell us the Medu nTr is not being deciphered. We are told Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 332 BC. So this was written 2 years after Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. And he became Pharaoh. On the monuments, his name in Greek, Alexandros, was transcribed in an oval called cartouche, like those of the ancient rulers, by using alphabetical signs at their disposal in the hieroglyphic system. On this fragment, it is written from right to left. And you see the letters here? That's the letters I told you, isn't it? Alksindrs, Alexander. I hope you heard me well. That's the Louvre Museum, Paris, France. One of the most visited museum in the world, one of the largest museum in the world. I think currently it's the largest one, but the Grand Egyptian Museum is like 98 to 99% complete, but it's not open yet. Once it will be open, it will officially be the largest museum in the world or archaeological museum in the world. But if the Louvre is not the largest that is open, it's one of the largest. I'm sorry, I think it's the largest one. This beautiful ruler. Now, that ruler belongs to someone called Maya, who was Minister of Finance of the King Tutankhamun. What's the date? 1300 BC, 18th dynasty, made of wood. And they told us that the size is 52.3 centimeters. I know you don't use the centimeters. Uh, nordometers in America, and is divided in 28 fingers of 1.86 centimeters. And one nice thing that they have done is that they've put a mirror at the bottom so we can read what's written below this ruler. That's Jehuti right there, the ibis bird on the standard. Those who take the classes, do you remember this one? Feel free to leave a comment if you come across this part of the video and tell me which necheret that is, which goddess that is. Now, which nature is that? What does it look like? I know when you start, the birds kind of look alike, but it's not the quail chick. It's not the Aleph vulture. It's not the Mut vulture. It's not the Ur. So which one could it be? Now here, I would say Inpu. Now here we have the throne and the loaf of bread. So you should know which Necheret that is. And here we have the throne with the eye. So you should know which Necheret that is. Here we have the vase or the pot with and it's read from right to left, by the way. The vase or the pot with the loaf of bread. You should know which Necheret that is. Well, it's a shame. I had to blow that thing up, but I had taken a picture of the reference, and here we can see clear. Now this here, believe it or not, is a shadow clock. This thing here. Now, ombre is a French word for clock. Um, my bad. Horloge is a French word for clock. Ombre is a French word for shadow. So this can be translated as shadow clock. And here we have a more technical term. Around between 1400 and 1300 BC, or actually 1350 BC. So this shadow clock is 3,000 years old. The king Amenopis III. Now Amenopis, that's Amenhotep. That's one way they write Amenhotep in French. I don't know why, but actually I don't know why. It's from the Greek. Amenhotep III offering Ma'at, which is the world's balance, to the sun god. On the side, we have the goddess Sotis, who is a master of the year. Now, here, that's how the shadow clock works. We have a lead thread there. Here, the position of the sun, and here the limit of the shadow. And we have the different hours. And here is 6 hours after the sun has risen. So the shadow on the these areas there on the horizontal side or baguette indicates how much time has passed since the rising of the sun. So 3,000 years ago, they had a very clever, ingenious way of knowing the time of the day, at least for the early hours after the sun has risen. If you have any questions or statement, then feel free. I've shared the invite link. I'm aware that there's less participation ever since I've been telling people that they need to show their face in order to get on the panel. And now we're getting more serious with the Kemetic culture. We're going through the text to the artifacts. It's not for everybody. All those are used for measuring in terms of weight. Here they tell us about different weight measures and what they call the deben. You might not see it too well, but here that's a baboon. And here we have his hand. On the other side, his hand has been damaged. And we are told this is Ramses the second. So this is Mesu. Uh, this one looks like Ra to me, and then we have the Mer. So that will be the Imen. So Ra, Mesu, Meri, Imen. And here it has to be Userma Adra Setepenra, but it's difficult to tell. Baboon thought, or thought baboon protecting a general of Ramesses II. So this is not Ramesses II, this is one of his general. The name of Ramesses II is written on his bust. Around 1200 BC, made of basalt. Now we can see the ibis headed individual, so that has to be Jehuti, that the Greeks called thought. It looks like the Ujat, like the eye of Heru to me. And I think that this one here is Imhotep, but we will see. So indeed, it is thought headed, I'm sorry, ibis headed thought. And he is carrying the Ujat eye, which is a sign of, how do you translate plenitude? Fullness. Oh, okay, those glyphs, well, we can distinguish them, but they are not really well drawn. I don't know why, but this obviously this has to be thought. Looks like a ibis edit person to me. This looks like a Jehuti thought. I mean the ibis on the standard. I don't know if this is the neb, but I don't know what those glyphs are. But here we have the was scepter. Uh, Here we have the D or the DF. I don't know about the rest, but here we have, it looks like pet and it looks like ka, but it's difficult to read here, you know. So the god thought, lord of Hermopolis, being honored by a scribe of the harem between 1600 and 1500 BC. And this one here, see when I told you, no, that's the one here. It's the large one. But the small one is also Imhotep, if I'm not mistaken. So you see the sage or the wise Imhotep, but it's Ptolemaic period, the late period that I don't usually dwell. Um, I don't usually dwell on it. Don't really normally pay much time or attention to the Ptolemaic period. We call it Ptolemaic because we have the uh, Ptolemaic dynasty. If I'm not mistaken, um, the first Ptolemy was a general of Alexander the Great. So uh, Alexander the Great comes from Macedonia, but that's really the Greek Empire. So for those who don't know, Kemet was finally conquered around 600 BC. Now we have the cat-eyed oracle who wrote "Let Me Call In." The link is there. It's at the top right corner of the chat. So I don't know if you use your mobile phone, but if you use a mobile phone, it would appear automatically. Uh, yeah, it says invite link, but you need to show your face, and I mean video, not just a picture. So if you're not ready to show your face, you can just continue to participate in the chat. Because for strange reason, amongst the conscious community, the majority of people don't show their face. You'll feel like being conscious is illegal. Um, Now this statue is dedicated by someone called Uah Ibre. You notice that's the same name that we saw earlier inside of the Chenu, inside of the cartouche. Now I don't have the full text, so that's a smaller statue. And the description tells us that this is a wise person. Actually, we are told that he is a deified, wise Imhotep, represented as a scribe. Late period, that's French for late period, Basse Epoque, between 600 to 332 BC. So Imhotep was deified. He's not the only one who have been deified. A few other people have been deified as well. Some people argue that Horus or maybe Osiris were human beings and that later on they were deified. Others argue that they are nTr or gods. It's very difficult to establish whether they were living persons because we don't even have any time period for Horus or Osiris and the other members of the Ennead or the other deities. I don't think anybody can give a time period or date for these individuals. Now, this one is interesting because if you look at the statue, it's whitish. But if we pay attention and we look closer, around the hair, we can still see the black coloring that has faded away because this is quite old. And here around the waist, we have the red ochre. And around the legs, it's even more obvious. So this reddish or reddish brown color initially covered the whole statue. It's important to know that. Now the cat eye or the cat-eyed oracle wrote, I am black person of Kemet bloodline and I can provide proof that you right, but you only accept face showing. Yes, that's the way I get down now. And it's not against you. It's the same for everybody. So people don't have to show their face. I can understand they have reasons for not wanting to show their face. But I'm in a point I'm in a point in my life where I don't see why people will not show their face. Talking about ancient history is not illegal. And I really prefer to dialogue directly with people who show their face so this way they are identifiable. Because some people, when they are not identifiable, when we don't see their face, they come on, they can, kind of change their voice and just say stuff for the sake of it. The cat eye oracle said, I'm not dressed. It doesn't take long to dress, you know, to put some clothing on. It doesn't take long at all. So, but I'm not gonna try to convince you to get dressed so you can just call in and show your face. If you don't feel like it, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? I was just kind of, saying why I prefer people to show their face. That's just the way it is. It's been like that for a while, though. It's not just this evening. Just for your information. Um, do you mind saying where you are located right now? And when you say you are of Kemet bloodline, what do you mean? Are you a Nubian? A hero, humanity is suffering because our gods are at war with each other through us. Okay. So, Rebis. What is Rebis? He wrote, I am Rebis. Okay, all right. All right, so where was I? You have a piece of papyrus. Now, this, if I'm not mistaken, is used to cut the papyrus. And we have tools of the scribes. See here, you can see the stick that will be used kind of like a pen. All right. So, seated scribe with the papyrus on his knees, 5th dynasty, between 2500 and 2300 BC. Painted limestone. We don't see much of the paint because it has faded away. Look at the date, between 2500 and 2350 BC. If we take the shortest or most recent date, 2350, then this is 2300 BC, 2300 BC. So that's 4,300 years old. 4,000 years old. Abraham wasn't born yet. If he existed, that's around 2000 BC. So it's quite amazing that we have such ancient artifacts with name, dates, and places as given in references. Before the Abrahamic belief system, I don't know what we have. What do we have? So it's been an hour and 13 minutes. There's plenty more of artifacts to go through. So we will do that progressively. Those who take the Medu Nature classes, you had quite a fair bit of glyphs to go through to practice. And there will be more to come. Now, some of the artifacts we have seen during the slides, but the majority, I would say, we have not seen, of course, because I select some particular um, artifacts, mainly, with some text that we can go through. So it will be a good exercise. All right. So if you know some people interested in the Medu Nature, let them know that I'm giving classes. If you want to see some artifacts from Kemet in different museums, feel free. Right now it's the Louvre Museum, but I have other pictures from other museums, different countries. All right. So if you're interested in the Kemetic culture, if you know some people who are also interested in the Kemetic culture, the Hieroglyphic, the Medu Nature, and let them know. Okay. Stay safe, stay healthy, and if I'm allowed to, by the nature, I will definitely holler back at you. Hotel. Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I'm giving Medu Nature classes. And here, that's the flyer. Okay? So,
Those who are interested, feel free to holler at me. If you're not interested, it's cool. But I recommend that everybody who has not yet seen the video Kemet and Ma'at before Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then watch it. It has about 300,000 views and really deserves to have a lot more.
I just want to let everyone know who's listening in now and who's going to listen to this stream in the future. I just had my first nTr class by Brother Shaka today, and I've had other nTr lessons by other teachers, and I can tell you right now, the brother is the best in the game. He is that was one of the best classes I've ever had, ever. So if you're interested in learning the nTr, if you're interested in getting the basics of it, Brother Shaka is an awesome teacher. Get with him, and it's extremely affordable. This brother is giving us his time and his skills, and he's basically giving it away. I mean, I just consider it a donation. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody's interested in learning the nTr, get with this brother right here. He's an awesome